This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, since the chair has, John Wyman resigned last month, I'll start the meeting off and then turn it over to the newly elected chair once we're done with the election. First up is introductions. I have a list of registered people through the process we did, so I'll just read off some names, and if you're here, just tell me, indicate here. First off, my name is Brad Harris. I'm with the MRPC. Sherry Bean.
Yeah.
Here. George Snow.
Here.
Brian Doherty.
Present.
Kevin Coughlin. Jessica Strunken. Eric Atkins. Dick Kilhart.
Here.
Joshua Prevel. Janet Tice.
Here.
Roger Hoyt. Guy Corbacero.
Here.
Paula Simmons.
Here.
Carol Haas.
I'm here sitting in for Beth Faxon for Townsend.
Thank you. Dick Mackey. I see you. We got you. Tim Kilhart.
Here.
And I see Jessica's coming. Jessica Strunken.
Here. I figured it out.
Thank you. So we do have a quorum, so we're all set for this meeting. Next item of business is, let me share my screen with everybody. Okay, the next item of business is public comments. Is there anyone with any comments I'd like to share or make for the meeting? No? Not hearing none, we'll move on to then item number 3, approval of the June 9th, 2021 minutes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look them over. Are there any comments regarding the minutes or changes that need to be made?
I have read the minutes and I believe that they are accurate. I'd like to move to approve the June 9th, 2021 minutes of the MJTC.
Okay, great. Is there any opposition to the minutes being approved or by consensus? No? Is anyone wishing to abstain? Okay, so not hearing any abstentions or disapproval of the minutes, we'll assume that consensus is given and the minutes have been accepted as printed. Thank you. The next item is the MJTC election of officers. The ballot as presented by the nominating committee is reflected on the screen. Nicholas Bosanetto from Fitchburg as the chair, Dick Kilhart from Athol as vice chair, and Guy Corbacero of Winchendon as secretary. We can take floor nominations at this meeting. Are there anyone who would like to be nominated for one of the positions? No? Okay, that being the case, I'll close nominations for the positions of chair, vice chair, and secretary. And since we only have one candidate for each position, I'll ask for the consensus of the group to cast one ballot for the nominees presented. and then we can move on. Is there any opposition to casting one ballot for the nominees as listed? No, not hearing any. So be it then. We'll have one ballot cast for Nicholas Bonsanetto of Fitchburg for chair, Dick Kilhart of Athol as vice chair, and Guy Copacer of Winchendon for secretary. So thank you all and congratulations. And with that, since Nicholas Bonsanetto is not here today, I'm going to ask if Dick Kilhart would mind taking over the chairmanship of the meeting.
Wow, you're putting me right on the spot the very first day.
I know.
Is that fair?
It's an easy meeting today, so.
Well, when you asked for nominations from the floor, I was going to nominate Tim Kilhart for vice chair, hoping that he would be outvoted by me, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Well, unfortunately, you weren't. So,
I'm happy to assume that role and take over the course of the meeting. Can you share, because I don't have it right here in front of me, a larger screen of the agenda versus you can take down the nomination form for me, please?
Okay, so the agenda's not up there. Let me reshare my screen.
But for me, it's
very small.
Yeah, very small.
Does that help at all?
That's a little bit better. Yep. If you can just shrink the ballot a little bit and make that a little bit. There you are. That's looking better. There we go.
All right. And we are on item 5, and that will be handled first by Brian Doherty.
Okay, so this is just, I believe the whole item 5 is just a number of different updates. So I'll start off with, we have a few different informational updates related to the 2020 census. Those numbers are starting to come out in the last few months. We expect the next year or two for the full census numbers to come out, kind of trickle out slowly. The first handout we have is basically just the list of overall state populations. Brad, I don't know if you. Yep.
Find it. Just a second. There we go.
So this year or last year's census is the first time Massachusetts has recorded over 7 million residents. And in fact, since 2010 census, the last census which was done, the state has seen approximately 7.4 increase in those 10 years. This 2020 census data has various significance in the planning world. One of the first things that's come out is just the representatives in Congress. In Massachusetts, after the 2010 census, we actually lost one of our representatives. We went from 10 to 9. That's not the case for the 2020 census. We're able to remain at 9. However, you can see the trend. Massachusetts and many Northeast states are in the same boat, losing overall percentage of population to states in the West and in the South. You can see this list going back 100 years. In 1920, Massachusetts' share was 16 members of Congress, and as I mentioned, we're currently at 9 members of Congress. So that's just one of the sort of high-level changes. The first type of census numbers that we see, and we're able to keep it at 9 members. Other numbers that have come out in the last month or two are environmental justice populations in the region. And here's a chart of the environmental justice block groups in our region, and environmental justice block groups being groups within a certain threshold of percent minority, low income, or English learning proficiency, or a combination of the three. This is significant because this information we consider when we look at prioritizing projects for our TIP, or when we begin to develop our regional transportation plan. We'll look at these block groups and the effect they have in our region, and they even affect some of the grants that we may apply for, such as the RAISE grant that we applied for in July. Here's a map of where those block groups are. So again, this is just some initial releases from the 2020 census that we've been seeing in the last few months. I believe the first numbers started to come out in April of 2021, and it may take a year or two before the full census analysis is done and those additional numbers are released by the Bureau.
Brian, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Sure.
Environmental justice numbers you see came from the Executive Office of EOEA, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So if you go to their site, mass.gov, and look up for environmental justice, you'll come to this website. And in here, you can find information on the policy, populations, and the map viewer, that map we just saw. So coming through here, you can get populations for your communities, the definitions of what is an environmental justice population, and then you can also get to the interactive map. Go to the interactive map viewer, and this comes up with the various block groups that we showed. So you can zoom into your community, Fitchburg and Gardner, so forth, and see the populations, where they are, what block groups they're in. And I believe the legend is right here. You can bring up the legend and see that the gold colored legend areas are for minority, the green are income, the light blue English isolation, then you have minority and income in the darker green, and so forth in the various maps. Here in Fitchburg and Leominster, down around the airport, you have a minority, income, and English isolation block group. So they meet the certain percentages for each category. So this is something that communities can use when they're applying for grants or looking for additional information. Again, it's the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and they will bring up this particular information. You can get actual data from them. So I just wanted to show that to everybody. Okay, Brian, back to you.
Okay, unrelated to the census, we've made a compilation of all the complete streets activities in our region. There's a handout summarizing where each community is on their complete streets projects. The funding program has been a pretty popular program in recent years. It's run by Mass DOT, and requires a community to develop a municipal policy and a prioritization plan to be eligible for the funds. You can see in this list a number of communities. Most of our communities have actually received funds for projects through this in the last few years. We also have some of those projects summarized in this handout as well, just for reference and to sort of compare what your community is doing with somebody else in the region. This year, in fiscal year 22, both Lancaster and Winchendon received about $400,000 each for various sidewalk improvements, and those are summarized in this list. We've assisted some communities in the past with their prioritization plans. So if your community is interested in sort of getting access to this funding, or if they may need help and maybe some direction on where to go, we're available for that. So feel free to reach out at any time. That's what I have on complete streets.
So the second part of this is to talk about the raised grant applications we put in. We mentioned it at the last meetings to give you a little update of where we stand. And Sherry will discuss this with you.
Okay, so back in July, we had put together 2 applications for the RAISE grant, and the RAISE component stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's formerly known as the Build or the Tiger grant. Some might be familiar with that. So no more than 100 million in awards can be given to more than one, like to a single state. So every state could get potentially up to $100 million. I'm imagining that there will be some higher than that, or lower than that, I mean. And up to 30 million will be awarded for planning grants, including at least 10 million to areas of persistent poverty. So they did have a focus on communities or areas that have persistent poverty, which kind of goes into what Brian was stating about the environmental justice areas. So you could use that to narrow down where those areas might be. So the grant was due July 12th, and we did get in 2 grants. The first one that we applied for was a regional climate vulnerability assessment and regional climate change resiliency plan for the entire Montachusett region. That will include all 22 communities, where most of our communities don't have their own specific plans, or everybody is kind of in their own place when it comes to planning for climate change or resiliency planning. This would be our way of kind of narrowing it down to make it a little bit more consistent across the board, since if one community has a plan in place, it doesn't necessarily mean that that climate will only happen in that community. It does span community borders, and this way we can all be on the same page when it comes to planning for these types of events. And the award for the amount requested for that grant was $500,000. The second one was also a $500,000 request, and it was for an environmental and design feasibility study for a new interchange on Route 2 in South Athol. This has been something that has been discussed for many years, and MRPC actually did a study on this in 2019 that examined the possibility of the development of this interchange and what the needs might be. So the access constraints for this area include 2 height-restricted railroad bridges, a steep grade road grades that create difficulty braking and accelerating issues, which produce intensive vehicle exhaust emissions for the heavy trucks, and then also an extensive side-by-side railroad right-of-way and water body constraint that limits the development of access along South Athol Road. And also creating this interchange would create more connectivity to the regional services, such as the fire department, the hospital, state police, the high school, things like that, and to namely get the large trucks off the small roads that aren't built for such things. So like I said, that was a $500,000 request. We also had a third project in mind. Sorry, my dog is now barking. A third project in mind along Route 12 in Leominster. That application was actually scrapped because we didn't have enough information on it. We needed more assessments to be done before it could be conducted. I'm going to throw him out the door. So we are going to hold off on the application until hopefully next year we can apply. That's all I have for that. If anyone has any questions, we hope to hear back, I think, sometime over the next couple months.
I think it's November is when the time frame is for responses. It'll be a little while. Any questions for Sherry?
Sherry, I have a question. Do we know how many other folks? I mean, do we know how many grants went into the pool by any chance? Is there any way of understanding there's 10,000 in there, or there's 25?
From what I understand, it's a pretty competitive grant. It is U.S. DOT, not just our state. So I do believe it's pretty competitive, but I don't know how many were submitted. I don't know that they've announced that either, to be honest. Brad, have you heard anything? I don't.
No, I went to the website to try and figure out to see if there's any updates on there, but outside of having to change the password, I didn't see anything that would tell me exactly how many have been submitted and where they stand in the process. So we'll check back again, hopefully before the next meeting. Maybe we'll get some further information to let you know, how competitive it is and what where we may stand on that whole process.
Okay. Moving forward, if there's no other questions with regards to that last presentation, moving forward to the Northern Tier Rail Study, which that information was sent out to all of us. And if you've had a chance to review that, discussion related to that initial study meeting will happen now. Brad, do you want
Yes, I've
to
got
lead
that
on
one.
that, please?
Sure. This will let you know what study that's upcoming. Back on July 13th, Senator Joe Comerford, she hosted a meeting for a kickoff meeting on what they're calling the Northern Tier Passenger Rail Study. This initial information you see up on the screen comes from trainsinthevalley.org. Just kind of give you a little brief outline. And then I've got a slideshow from MassDOT put together regarding the whole process. But basically, they're going to be looking at the Northern Tier, which being Boston, all the way out through Fitchburg, out to Greenfield, and possibly even further west, out to the Pittsfield, Berkshire area. So the study is going to look along that rail access road. The kickoff meeting basically brought together people from the regional agencies, the communities, even people from New Hampshire and Vermont joined in. And basically, there'll be like the working group that'll help oversee some of this and the process as it moves forward. Let me show you the study that Mass DOT put together, the slideshow Mass DOT put together. It's going to increase this a little. This was back in April. They put together this quick PowerPoint. I'll just run through it. Basically, in the background, it's through the Massachusetts legislature. They're directing MassDOT to conduct the feasibility of passenger rail service from Boston to Greenfield and eventually out to North Adams. They're going to look at the speed, frequency, and reliability necessary for a competitive option for travel along those corridors. So they're looking to basically make it competitive to the road system to get people into Boston to access jobs, commercial activity, and so forth. As a study background, Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 84, basically lists what the study is going to look at and evaluate. It's going to include a projected capital cost, how much the operating costs and revenue estimates might be, ridership levels, the prospect of operating rail service on existing rights-of-way and other operational issues, as opposed to having to identify another right-of-way that needs to be fully developed. They'll also look at the environmental impact, look at community impacts and benefits, and I think most importantly, potential sources and availability of federal, state, local, and private sector funding, and looking to also what those benefits will be to both Franklin and Berkshire counties and the Commonwealth as a whole. The study corridor, as I mentioned, looks at both passenger and freight rail operations along the corridor. They're looking at the MBTA commuter rail Fitchburg line, which is the one in purple, and then the Pan Am Southern, which is the rest of the route in blue. So that's the corridor they're going to be looking at all the way out to North Adams. And I'm sure they'll make some considerations about possibly further, but this is the major focus of the entire stretch. As you know, in our area, there's always been a demand or wish to bring train service back to Gardner. But one of the problems has always been, one of the problems with getting the service back out to Gardner has been once you get beyond Fitchburg and now the Montachusett station, there's a slow upgrade here and a sharp hairpin turn, and that's because of the grading of the terrain out there. And so you get slow speeds for the train, which obviously impacts the reliability and the speed of the commuter rail service. So that's one issue that's going to have to definitely be addressed and looked at to see if that can be overcome. So just an overview of the study. It's a conceptual planning study to find regional and statewide environmental and economic benefits, as well as associated challenges, and excuse me, and identify all necessary improvements to support passenger rail service between Boston and northwestern Mass. As I said, the Boston project limits it between Boston, Greenfield, and North Adams. They'll also look at additional rights of way that may be necessary to help maintain and use this rail line. And overall, it's expected to take about 18 months from an issuance of a notice to proceed. And I don't believe that notice has gone out yet. They've talked to some consultants, and they're working on the contract with the consultant at this time. But once they do get the notice to proceed, they'll begin the study process. There'll be an extensive public participation process to put together a public involvement plan. There'll be a large data collection effort also looking at past work and past efforts. We'll have a market analysis of demographics, land use, and current and projected, physical, regulatory, and right-of-way ownership. Then they'll develop potential service plans and alternatives to those. They've been targeted to develop up to 6 service alternatives. Then they'll evaluate those alternatives with cost estimates and develop a series of recommendations and next steps for the state to move forward with. In terms of public engagement, at a minimum, the study is going to have 2 public involvement components. One is a working group, and that's one of what we met back on July 13th. There'll be the working group that will comprise of residents, communities, industrial, local, and state, and regional, and legislative, and federal representation. We'll review information that moves forward as the project moves forward. We'll meet at key project milestones to give feedback and to share questions and review the information put together. And then also be a series of public meetings that will again be held at key milestones for the general public. And they'll also be spaced out throughout the corridor. We're talking about meetings out here in the Fitchburg-Leominster area, the Gardner area, Athol, and so on. And again, exactly how many there will be is not known at this time, but they plan to have an extensive public involvement process. And that's basically it right now where we stand. Once that notice to proceed comes in, I'll let everybody here know how long and when they begin. And we'll make notice of the public meeting so that everybody will get a chance to see the information and provide feedback as they see fit. So that is basically it on the Northern Tier rail study. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
Moving forward, the future MJC meetings and the format for discussion. And underneath here it says the new MRPC public meeting procedures and MJTC application.
Okay, I'll be taking that one also. As you may have noticed with the meeting notices for this MJTC meeting, there's a different process. Normally we send out the link to the meeting and you can just use that to click in and join in. Last month, Glenn, our executive director, started working on a new procedure. The concern was to prevent anyone from what's called Zoom bombing the meeting by coming in just to disrupt and cause issues and so forth. So from beginning August 1st, the process has been changed to requiring people to register for the meeting before they get meeting links. This general first page just runs down what the purpose of and how, what meetings are involved and what will be the process. But so the JTC and the NPO will also be following these new processes. Those who are coming into the meeting virtually, not vital attendee, but virtual attendee registration, needs to fill out the form to get the actual link back so that they can join in. What I'll show you is next month for the September meeting, you'll get in your email this general information. Down below, instead of having the complete login information, you'll get use this link to register. So you'll have to click on this link here, which will take you to this form where you fill in your name, your email address, and anything else you wish to put in there. Once you hit submit, you'll then get an email almost right away back with the login information that you need for the meeting. You can also log in through the MRPC website. If you go to mrpc.org, let me just bring it up real quick. Right here in the front of on the front page, you'll have the upcoming meeting information. You can click on that meeting note, and there'll be the same information for registering and links to that registration like I showed before. So it's a way to hopefully prevent any unnecessary disturbances to the meeting, and to have a smoother running meeting. We will also this link will be up here through the online website, to our MRPC website, till the meeting's over. So any of the general public at any point can click in and get the login information at any time while the meeting is going on. Yeah. So again, the whole process is to try and prevent disruptions to the meeting. But what I'd like to know from the MJTC is we're also giving the option of having a hybrid meeting where people can come into the office for the meeting. We'll hold it in a regular facility in the conference room or the atrium like we used to do, but at the same time have it also virtual, be online for people. At the next month meeting, I'd like to have that option available to everybody. So if you do wish to attend in person, you can just show up the day of the meeting, appoint the time, and you don't need to register beforehand. We'll have sign-in sheets at the meeting so that people can sign them in, but you won't have to go through that online registration. But if you still wish to do virtual, you'll need to use the online registration form to get the particular information on it. And if that's agreeable with everybody, then we'll start next month with it being in terms of hybrid meeting with both in-person and online attendance. That's quickly kind of how we're going to be moving forward. And I'm sure if we run into problems along the way, we'll make adjustments as necessary. But are there any questions about this new process? I know we had some issues today, but hopefully we can smooth them out and find out what they were, and continue to move forward so it becomes easy for everybody to join in, whoever they wish to.
Brad, the only thing I would say, and maybe it's not anything related to the program, I could not get my camera to work through that link. Really? I was just on another Zoom this morning, so I know it's not the camera, but just in case somebody else has that same problem.
Okay. I'll mention it to our tech people, and they can always check and see if there's any issues that they know about.
Okay, any other questions on the new format? And for the record, I do think it's nice to be able to have people go back to a public meeting like what we once used to, although I think with the advent of all these Zoom meetings, it seems like you just get done with a meeting and then someone's standing right on top of your door for something else. So I'm not sure we're going to get away from these virtual meetings as quickly as we would like. But right. For some of us, it may be a bit more relaxing to meet in person instead of having to be right back in on top of something 2 minutes after you complete something. So I like that option. So thank you for that.
Great. Well, one thing I didn't mention was the governor's executive orders that they had initially with the COVID emergency allowed boards and so forth to meet online and have a quorum online. Well, that's been extended until April 1st, 2022. So sometime by then, the legislature will have to take action to formally make it legal to have a quorum online. Because right now, where the law is written, the quorum has to be physically present at the meeting. But the executive order that the governor signed has been extended on that aspect until April 1st of next year. So by April 1st of next year, we should be able to tell people exactly how we're going to proceed further in terms of a quorum, which is always an important thing to have. So we'll let you know as we move forward.
Excellent, thank you. Moving forward to contract status reports. First, the Federal Transit Administration, followed by the Regional Transit Authority and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation.
I'll have to cover those right now. For those of you who don't know, George Cahaley, unfortunately, was laid off as our transit project director in the middle of July. So I'm trying to cover, and our staff's trying to cover his work over the remainder of the contract year. In terms of what's going on with Federal Transit and the Regional Transit Administration Authority, we're meeting with them on a regular basis to discuss what we need to do to support their contract and the Federal Transit Administration contract. I know they're working on getting all their bus routes back up and running. They're looking at discussions on some shuttle service in Littleton and some possible changes to that shuttle service. They recently added the town of Barry to their membership. So they are beginning discussions with Barry as to meeting their needs and getting them involved in the overall Montachusett Regional Transit Authority process. And as far as I know, the air station is still on track in terms of possible finalization of the rest area, and that should hopefully be completed sometime later this fall. That's all I really have on the Federal Transit and Regional Transit Authority end. Moving on. Whoops, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I thought you were going to leave out the item number C, Brett, but no, go ahead.
No. Okay, moving on to Mass DOT. As we mentioned previously, our staff is back in the office. The executive director, Glenn Eaton, he's continuing to monitor information and recommendations in case there is a change needed. Any changes will be posted to the MRPC website, so hopefully we'll let you know beforehand if there's any change in our status here within the office. The MPO met last month and they approved an adjustment to the FFY 2021 element of the 2021 to 2025 Montachusett TIP. The adjustment was based on reduced cost changes. This is a summary that was given out at the MPO meeting. It involved two projects. The first one in Gardner, the reclamation and related work on Pearson Boulevard. Originally was programmed at $1.264 million. The change in the amount was the project cost came in less, so it was reduced to $832,000. So it's a reduction of $432,000, or about a 34% decrease in project cost. And then the second project was in Winchendon, improvements and related work on Central Street, Route 202, from Front Street to Maple Street. That project was originally budgeted at $4.5 million. With the new estimates came in, it's now being programmed at $4.1 million. So a reduction of about $406,000, or just under 10%, 9.02%. Based on the amendment procedures in our TIP, and as the federal and state amendment procedures in the state transportation improvement program, the reduction in costs were not considered significant enough to require a project or a full amendment process where it was put up for 30-day public review and comment and so forth. So this was just done as an adjustment. The MPO was advised of the changes and they agreed to use the adjustment procedure. So it's been changed in our TIP moving forward. So just to let you know that change. Also, the Montachusett MPO meeting scheduled for this month on August 18th has been canceled. So the next regularly scheduled MPO meeting will be Wednesday, September 15th at 1 p.m. And we'll send out notices on that also. And the last item I have is the MRPC staff met with Congresswoman Lori Trahan in Ashburnham on Tuesday, August 3rd. Congressman Trahan has identified the Route 101 South project in Ashburnham and the Route 31 Turnpike Road project in Ashby to receive $1 million in federal funds in new transportation infrastructure bill. So it's a, lack of a better term, an earmark of $1 million to each of those projects. So this was an opportunity for her to come out and see the project locations and discuss their importance to the communities involved and to see exactly where the funding will be going. So she was out here for a good couple hours, I think, on Monday, touring the site and getting a handle on what's going to be put in place. And as we indicated, even though the Route 101 South project in Ashburnham's got a total cost of about $8.5 million, and the Route 31 Turnpike Road project is about $2.5 million. Any additional funding is good for us. It gives us a little bit more leeway in programming the projects. So hopefully they'll move along a little bit faster and be able to get out the door. The Ashby project scheduled for, I think, next year. The Ashburnham project is slated for federal fiscal year 2025. So hopefully this may be a yearly thing with the new bond bill and the new infrastructure bill. So maybe we'll be asked to come up with some recommendations next year for the project. So we'll keep you all informed. And that's all I have on the status.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward to scheduling our next MJTC meeting, which I saw that flyer up. Looks like we're looking at September 8th.
Yep. Typically what we've done in the past in the end of the year is we've gone every other month. So if I guess basically what the preference would be of the MJTC, if we meet in September, we can take off October, meet in November, and then have December off. Or we could skip September, meet in October, skip November, and meet in December. So whichever way the MJTC would like to play it, we can do that. With the caveat too that if something comes up that's really important and we need to meet, we'll call a meeting in those off months if necessary. So my question to the JTC is, which would they prefer to have to meet in October, November, or meet in September and meet in September and November, or meet in October, December?
It's on the floor for certainly for discussion, but I think maybe it might be good to skip September, meet in October, and then skip and meet the final month. But is there any other thoughts out there from the group?
I'm in agreement with that suggestion.
Okay. All right. Is there any other opposition to that? So we'll not meet in September, meet in October, skip November, and meet in December. Does anyone have a problem with that? No? Okay, well then we'll set it up that way. We'll send out notices in time and let everybody know that the meeting will be held. Our next meeting will then be in October, which will be October 13th, Wednesday, October 13th at 2:30 p.m. And I will send out reminder notices in September and then the meeting notice in October.
Okay, is there any other items that the members of the association group would like to bring forward before we move to adjournment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until October.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And in the interim, if you have any questions or any problems with the virtual meeting logins, let us know, and we'll try and straighten them out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.